Hello, welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda. My kids are in the other room watching The Croods, I think, so you may hear that. But I'm here with my May wrap-up. Now, if you've never seen one of my wrap-ups before, I have sort of a structure that I follow. So I'm going to go through like how many books I read and the breakdown there, and then the titles that I read based on what I thought of them. And then what I read for different events. And then I'm going to close with sort of my year stats as far as my TBR goes. So let's get started. In the month of May, I read 20 books. I'm kind of surprised by that number. I didn't think I had read that much, but apparently I did. 13 of those were fiction and 7 were nonfiction. I did not DNF any. And my average rating was 3.7. It's not bad. As far as the breakdown goes, 10 of my books were print, 4 were ebooks, 5 were audiobooks, and 1 was a multiple tandem. That was a buddy read that I did, and I'll get to it, where I started reading the ebook and it wasn't working and I needed to finish it somehow, so I switched to audio. Normally, those are when I do my Shakespeare plays, but I don't do a Shakespeare play in May. So now I'm going to go through the books that I read in sort of what I thought of them. And the way I rate my books, I don't do half stars or anything. I do 5 stars. A 5-star book is a best ever book, and I'm going to have a little bit more of an explanation when I get to that. A 4-star is a book that I would highly recommend. A 3-star is a book that I would still recommend. I liked it. There might be problems with it. It might have a limited audience. There might be some caveats with it, but I still recommend it. That's a 3-star book. 2 stars are just books I wouldn't recommend, and 1 star is books that I wish I had DNF'd. And when I go through this, I don't go by star, I go by whatever it is. So like, and then I also have Up in the Air, which means I'm not really sure what to think about it. Generally, these are also 3-star books. So let me start there, because I did have one book that I'm kind of up in the air about, and that is The Wanderer's Curse by Jennifer Hope Choi. This is a memoir about an Asian American woman, Korean American woman growing up, and the idea with the Wanderer's Curse is a Korean concept of yok masal, which is like an inherent, you have to keep moving around. Either like the writing, I was really interested when I was reading this. I felt the book was a little unfocused, but my biggest problem is that's not what this book's about. I really feel like there was a little bit of a bait and switch here. I do think what might have worked, though, is that instead of this just being a straight prose memoir, if she had done a memoir in essays, one of the essays could have been The Wanderer's Curse. It would have been the titular essay. It would have been fine. So I think the writing was great. I just think it was a structural issue and maybe like an editing, marketing issue. Okay, and then I have 3 books that I actually don't recommend, and I don't have any of them here. I read, they're either audio or ebooks. The first one was the one that I would do buddy read, where I started ebook and then switched to audio. And that was A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. It's just not my thing. I didn't like the main character. I had a lot of issues with that book, but I know a lot of people love it, so take that. I buddy read this with Katie Sykes, and I'll mention that again down as I get down to my buddy reads. But I think we both struggled with this book quite a bit. I'm not going to read on in the series. It just isn't a series for me. The second one, the next 2, I was really surprised that didn't work for me. And the first one is The Song of the Lark by Willa Cather. I'm slowly reading Willa Cather's works, and I've really enjoyed everything I've read by her. This one sorry. Bookish Best Friend just texted me. Sorry about that. This one, it just didn't work. First of all, in the early part of the book, the main character, Thea, is a 12-year-ish girl, and there's a lot of sexualizing of her by men, grown men sexualizing this, to the point that I was very uncomfortable. So there's that. The rest of it is, I wasn't really sure what this book was supposed to be. It's like a woman, is it supposed to be Thea coming into her own? Is it supposed to be what everyone thinks of Thea? I felt it just really didn't have that focus that I wanted. This is a series with O Pioneers and My Antonia, and that really surprised me because this is not like those books at all. It didn't feel like it fit into that series, which is fine. That's just something that I noticed. There were moments of beautiful writing because it is Cather. This was not my favorite that I've read so far. My favorite is still Death Comes for the Archbishop, but Yeah, that one wasn't for me. And then the final one that I don't recommend is actually on my June TBR. I ended up doing it was supposed to be one of my Pride books. It's also for a book club, and I ended up getting the audio of it, so I just did the audio. And that's Detransition Baby by Torrey Peters. I was so excited to read this one. I've been waiting for my book club for a long time to do this, and I just felt that there were some real structural issues with this book. My biggest problem was the author never sold me on why these three people wanted to enter some sort of triple parenting situation. Like, I never understood why they wanted to do it. There was one character, the character of Reese. I understood why she wanted to, but I didn't understand why she wanted to do it with these two people, if that makes any sense. Like, so a lot of that was just like, what? There was also an issue at the beginning that I will get into in my weekly wrap up. You'll see it this Saturday that it's too long. I won't get into it here, but it was more of a me thing. But it was something that really had a negative impact on me. So I do think this is going to be a great book club discussion. There was a lot to discuss, and I liked Torrey Peters' writing, and I really felt that she got into the characters, and we really got to see, really see the world through their eyes. I just felt like the story, the pieces didn't come together like they should. Okay, so as for books that are just kind of recommended, this one might have actually gone into Up in the Air too. I thought it was a novella. It's not even a novella. It's Letters to a Soldier by Julia Spencer-Fleming. This is book 6.5 in her Miller's Kill series with Claire and Russ. I'm caught up in that series. There's a new one coming out, I think in December, the end of this year. So I'm looking forward to that because she has new books every 7 years or something. I don't know. This was just letters written between characters that goes between those two books. So first of all, I wish I'd read it where it falls in the series because I'm way past that point. So I was like, what was the situation going on here with these? I was a little discombobulated with that. But also, it's just a couple letters. I was completely shocked when I finished it in 10 minutes. But it is a distinct title that came off of my TBR. So I'm counting it as a title here. It was fine. There's no reason to read it if you don't read that series though. And now I have quite a few books that fall into the highly recommended section. The first is my Agatha Christie for the month, which is Cricket House. This is a standalone, so it's not a Marple, it's not a Perot, it's not a Superintendent Battle or any of those. And what I really found interesting about this was that her book right before this one really didn't work for me. What was the name of that one? Can't even remember. I've wiped it out of my mind. Don't read the last chapter of that one. This had a lot of the same setup, but it just worked far better. And she goes places with this one. That's all I'll say. Interesting characters, more interesting. So even though it's kind of the same setup as the previous book, the characters are far more interesting here. I kind of felt like with the first one, I can't remember what the first one was. I should look that up. Hold on a sec. Okay, I'm back. It's Taken at the Flood was the one that it was fine. The last chapter was completely unnecessary and ruined everything. It was unnecessary. Don't read the last chapter of that. But I just felt like this was like she took another stab at the same setup and she got it to work this time. That's what I felt like with Cricket House. And as a standalone, you can just pick it up whenever and read it. You don't have to worry about it being a part of a series. Not that you really have to worry about that with Agatha Christie, but really you don't need to get to know anybody because they only appear in this book. So that was Cricket House. Do you recommend that one? Let me get back to my screen here so I make the next one. Okay, the next one is a nonfiction book. This was longlisted for the Women's Prize. Did not make the short list, but it also read it for Historathon, and that is Embers of the Hands, this way, Hidden Histories of the Viking Age by Eleanor Barraclough. This was an enjoyable history of Vikings, but it's very high level. Personally, I'd like to go a little deeper just because I knew a lot of what was already in here, and that's fine. That's not an issue with the book. I'm just saying it's pretty high level. It's great if you've never really read about the Vikings and you want to know more, go here. The parts where she talked about Greenland was where I learned the most because that's what I knew the least about going in. But it was very readable. It's very accessible for people who don't sit around like me and read history books. I can see why it was longlisted. I can also see why it wasn't shortlisted, but I enjoyed it. I mean, I would recommend this book to anyone who wants to know more about the Vikings. Okay, the next one, This on a reread will probably go up to 5-star. And the only reason it's a 4-star here is I feel like I'm still processing it. It was really good. Fahrenheit 451, I had never read it before. I actually wasn't even planning to read it this year. I actually bought this copy so I could read it in 2026 for classics catch up. And then my daughter started reading it in school. So I thought, well, I'm gonna read it along with her. About book burning. There's a lot going on here. It's very profound, especially profound to read now. I think I had a much different experience reading it now than I would have had I read it in high school. When I was in high school, the only time book banning was ever kind of on our radar is when we talked about Huckleberry Finn and like it had been banned in the past. That was it. But now book banning is everywhere, unfortunately. So the cat is climbing in a box, if you want to know what that noise is. But I need to read this again. I need to digest more of it. So the 4-star, the highly recommended, is really a placeholder. This will probably end up being a 5-star. Also, if you get this edition, it's only half of this is actually the book. After that, it's all like scholarship essays, things like that. So I was really surprised when I finished this book and I was only halfway through. I'm like, oh, it's over. But yeah, so that one was definitely worth my time. I think I have, oh no, okay. So next one was the first of 2 books that's for Mariandria at Books and Bocadillos for her book club. This is actually last month's book club. Last month it got away from me. I didn't get a chance to read it, but I made a point of reading it this month, and that is The Invisible Life of Euridice Gusmao. This is the story of a housewife in 1940s Buenos Aires and her sister, and sort of their dissatisfaction with their lot in life. It put me in mind, not that there's a lot of story similarities or plots, but just the feel of it, vibe-wise, it put me a lot in the mind of Lessons in Chemistry. Really enjoyed it. This is the first book, I believe, that I have read from Brazil, and it is translated by, Eric M.B. Becker. So it's translated from the Portuguese. Really, it was a fun, quick read. I would recommend it, definitely. Yeah, if you want to read something from Brazil. Okay, and then I have a short story collection, and I pre-ordered the short story collection, and I began reading it the day I got it. And that is Atavists by Lydia Millet. I first read Lydia Millet in March when I went on vacation to Arizona. I had her book Dinosaurs, which I knew took place in Arizona, and I brought it as a vacation read, and I just really loved it. I loved her writing. So when I saw she had a short story collection come out, I picked that up, and this is sort of interconnected short stories. I don't know if I would call it a novel of interconnected short stories because I didn't feel like there was really a plot holding them together. You just sort of see the same characters over and over again. Each story is an ist, like a tourist or a terrorist or a gerontologist. Not that they're specifically that thing, but there's something about it that kind of ties them to that. I thought it was a really inventive collection. Like most short story collections, not every story hit, but most of them did. Would definitely recommend. Definitely recommend. If you've never read Lydia Millet, not a bad place to start. So, especially since I was looking at some of her backlist, and apparently she can be weird. And I think this is probably one of her less weird books. So, maybe start here. Dinosaurs is also a good place to start. And then I have one that I don't have here, and this is another short story, standalone short story, The Bookstore Family by Alice Hoffman. This is number 4 in her Once Upon a Bookstore series, which are just little novellas that she releases as Kindle singles. Delightful, sad, talks about the joy of like children's literature. I do recommend this. I just feel that this one, and all of them probably need to be read in order, but it took me 20 minutes to read each one, so you could easily read them in order. They're all available, unfortunately, only on Amazon, but they're fun little stories. I look forward to it whenever I see a new one's coming out. Okay, and then I have my second book for Mariandria's book club. This was this month's book, and that is Night at the Fiestas by Kirstin Valdez Quade. This is another short story collection, another really strong one. There was a story in here that 2 people, I think Mariandria and I think Angelia, both told me that the story called 5 Wounds in here has been developed into a novel, so I need to look into that. Again, not every story hit, but most of them did. heads up, the story The Guest House, you should skip if you have issues with harm coming to animals. Really strong. Most of the stories are set in New Mexico, a lot around the Latinx community down there. Really, I will definitely be reading more from Kirstin Valdez Quade. Okay. And then I have another Historathon book. And I've talked a lot about this one, and so I don't go into some territory I once went into and spent too much time in. I'm going to be very limited in what I say about this. Queens of the Age of Chivalry, England's Medieval Queens by Alison Weir. She has a story called England's Medieval Queens. This is book 3. Book 1 is Queens of the Conquest. Starts in 1066, first couple queens, through Matilda, who some say is a queen, some say isn't, but you read her book to find out. And then we have Queens of the Crusades, which is the Eleanor of Aquitaine down through there. And then Queens of the Age of Chivalry starts with Marguerite of France, goes through Isabella of France, the she-wolf, Philippa of Vannon, Anne of Bohemia, and Isabella of Valois. And at that point, we're getting into Shakespeare. Really enjoy this series. This is a great, this one is especially good because Isabella of France, the she-wolf, is just, wow. But it is really it was a joy to read. And then I have a book I haven't actually talked about on my channel, and I will talk about this, but it's going to be a Books of the Spirit video. So any kind of like spirituality, Christian books that I review, I put those under Books of the Spirit because I know not everybody wants to watch those for whatever reason. So I just do it. So if it's not your thing, you can opt out of it. And this one is God Didn't Make Us to Hate Us by Reverend Lizzie McManus-Dail. She is an Episcopal priest. She is TikTok famous. She is known as the Bedazzled Priest because she bedazzled everything she can get her hands on. She has a podcast that she does with another priest called And Also With You. This is a devotional, a 40-day devotional, and it does end with, it would work really well in Lent, except it doesn't account for Holy Week, but whatever. Really, really good devotional. My one issue with it, it's not an issue with the book. It's not an issue with the book. It's an issue with just me and the book. And I will get into this more when I do that video. I'm not the audience for this. This is for people who are deconstructing their faith. And I've not gone through that. I don't feel the need to go through that. So she has a lot of great stuff to say. It's just not stuff that is new to me. It's not stuff that that's going to be like, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way, because that's always what I've believed. So I am actually going to be taking this book to my church library and donating it in case someone would like to read that. Okay. And then finally I have Alison Weir again, but this was my first foray into her fiction. And this is Katherine of Aragon, the True Queen. And I did this as a buddy read with commenter Abby. This is about Katherine of Aragon. It is a historical novel about her. I know the Tudors pretty well. So there's nothing really new here that rocked my world, except something that I did not know, because it's not something that really had an impact on how history unfolds. So it's not something that I ever learned in my history classes. But Henry VIII had 6 wives. We all know that. I didn't really realize until I read this that other than Anne of Cleves, how intertwined those 6 wives were. So you have Katherine of Aragon. Anne Boleyn was one of her ladies in waiting. We knew that. But what I didn't know was she had another lady in waiting named Maud Parr, who is the mother of Catherine Parr, who was wife number 6. And also Jane Seymour, who was wife number 3, was one of her ladies in waiting. I didn't know that. And for Catherine Howard, she was Anne Boleyn's cousin. So they're all, those 5 of the 6 are all really kind of in the same little group. I really enjoyed this book. It held my attention, even though I knew a lot of the stuff. I think she did a really good job of getting into Katherine of Aragon's mind and mindset. It's a limited third person, so you don't get into the mindset of anybody else really. But I will say, as far as Princess Mary, just through what Catherine sees of her, you do get a good glimpse of her. I'm very interested to read the second one, which I will be reading in June, because Anne Boleyn is really painted as the villain in this one. So I want to know if she holds that through to the second book, or if she kind of humanizes it, because it does make sense from Katherine of Aragon's point of view. Anne Boleyn is a villain. Like, yes. But how does Alison Weir see her? And how is she going to see the world through Anne Boleyn's eyes? So I'm really interested in reading that. That'll be up in June. I did cry at the end. I really cried at the end. I didn't think I would. I did not think I would cry at the end of this one. If I were going to pick a queen that I would cry at the end of, it wouldn't have been Katherine of Aragon. Not that I have anything against Katherine of Aragon. I just like she died of cancer, cancer of the heart. But it just was so well written. So yes, definitely for any of you history nerds like me out there. There you go. Okay, and now I have 2 5-star books. 5-star books for me are books that I consider all-time favorites. That doesn't necessarily mean I think they're perfect. And I will get to that with one of them, okay? So the first one I have, I ended up listening to it, but I do have the copy, and that's Circe by Madeline Miller. I did this as a buddy read with Erin at Erin Go Live. We're like the last people to have read this book. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very beautiful. Madeline Miller reminded me a lot of Natalie Haynes, although I think Natalie Haynes has more humor than Madeline Miller does, but I really felt this one was good. I think it really helps to know the Odyssey. Erin wasn't as familiar with it, but I was, so I kind of knew who everybody was in it. And I did know some of the other stories kind of around it, like of Medea and Clytemnestra, all those that sort of are mentioned in here. But I just thought it was beautifully written, and I'm definitely going to read Song of Achilles at some point, although I think I'm going to read that, not listen to it. And I think she has another one, like a short one. I need to look that up, but this was definitely a 5-star for me. So the next one, and I have an entire video coming out about this one. This is one where it is a 5-star book for me because it's a reread for me, and it's been 20 years. And it has really, parts of it have just seared itself into my soul from the first time I read it. And that to me is a 5-star. But I do think that there are a few problems with the book, nothing major, but yeah, I wouldn't, if I were 5 stars was not a thing that I was considering and I just had to go in the merits, it would be a 4-star probably, but it still wouldn't be perfect. But that is Giants in the Earth by Ola Edvard Rolvåg. This is the story of Norwegian immigrants to the Dakota Territory. We follow a man named Per Hansa and his family. He is going out there with a friend of his, a friend of his and his family, and then another couple, and then 2 brothers. And they're forming this little community out in Dakota Territory, now South Dakota. And it's them setting it up and the things that they go through. I have said many times, probably sick of me hearing this, it's like Grown Up Little House on the Prairie, but less optimistic and more realistic. I 100% stand by it. I did this as a double buddy read. I did it with commenter Christina, and then I did it with Hannah at Savage Reads. And I was talking to Hannah about it. Like, she's like, but I'm not really she was not really a Little House on the Prairie person. I never, like her, I want to, well, sometimes I did, I guess. I wanted to live Little House on the Prairie. But I reread Little House on the Prairie. So I read this 20 years ago. I read Little House on the Prairie as a kid, all the books. I read this about 20 years ago. And then when my kids were little, I read the Little House Prairie books to them as an adult. So I saw them through different eyes. So my reading of this goes with that. And it is interesting because this takes place the same time as Laura Ingalls Wilder was doing her thing. And there are things in the Little House books that happen in this book. Generally, I think this is a more realistic view of it. Not because I think Laura Ingalls Wilder was full of crap. That's not it. I think Rose was sometimes, but because Laura Ingalls Wilder was writing as an old woman, thinking back on her memories as a child, and that's great, but that's not always super accurate. Whereas Rolvåg was a Norwegian immigrant, and he's writing this book came out in 1925, so it predates the Little House books. He's a lot closer to the source material, and he's writing about adults, and he was an adult when he came over. So I think that there's a lot of more realism in it. It is a tough read. As you get down below, you can see I used it for 2 different May reading prompts. It is actually 2 books in one. There's technically 4 books in this series, which is, I don't know what the series is called. We're going to call it the Giants on the Earth series. But the two books in here are called, I just had it. Also, this book was originally written in Norwegian, and then the author and someone else translated it into English. The first one's called The Land Taking, and the second is called Founding the Kingdom. So the first two books are in here. The third book is Pater Victorious, and the fourth book is Their Father's God, which I purchased both those two books. I haven't read them yet. So this one is definitely one that has stuck with me really deeply. And there's something at the end that really comes back to my own family, but I can't tell you because it would be a spoiler. So this was my other 5-star. So if you went through all that, you realize that was only 17 of 20 books. That's because 3 of the books, actually I could tell you about it because I could actually tell you about the 3 books. I didn't put them on here because it was like, oh, Book 2 prize, I can't tell you about them. But the Book 2 prize was announced, or the round that I did was announced. So that's okay. If you want to know about those, today, this will go out on Tuesday. Tomorrow, Wednesday, I will have my Book 2 prize ranking. So just come tomorrow and you'll hear about those other 3 books. Yeah, because otherwise, yeah, this is already long enough. Okay, so let me go into my read-alongs and events that I did these for. For Historathon 2025, I read 2 books. I read The Embers of the Hands, Hidden Histories of the Viking Age by Eleanor Barraclough, and Queens of the Age of Chivalry, England's Medieval Queens, Book 3 by Alison Weir. Now, Mental Health May and Misery May worked together for Giants in the Earth. There is a lot of mental health issues in this book. Per Hansen's wife has some real mental health problems. I should say, she's dealing with some mental health issues that are exacerbated by... Exacerbated? They're made worse by her situation. And that is a very realistic portrayal of what did happen to a lot of women in her situation. So Mental Health May, and also Misery May, because this book is sometimes very miserable. So this did double duty. For AAPI month, at one point I said, each Heritage Month I'm going to read 50% by someone in that group. No, I only read one. I just had too many other books. I hit 50% for Black History Month. And then for Muslim American Month, I think I got one, and I just have The Wanderer's Curse for AAPI month. I would have read more if I had time, but there's too many books, too little time, sort of thing. So I guess I'm just like one book. If I can get one book, I'm good. And then for book clubs, I had 3 book club books. Well, the first 2 were both for Mari Andreas, which was The Invisible Life of Euridice Gusmao and Night at the Fiestas. So you can go over to her channel. It'll be a link down below. And you can go check her out and find out what she's reading for the rest of the year. I really liked all the books. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading more books for her book club. And then the other one was for my Marginalized Authors Book Club that's actually meeting in June, on June 14th. And that was Detransition Baby. I had originally planned to read this starting in June. But when I did my June TBR and I saw how big it was, and I realized I could get the audio right away of Detransition Baby, I'm like, I'm just going to do that now. So that's what happened with Detransition Baby. So all right, it's great. Like, I was able to take a book off my June TBR before June even started. So that one was for that. And I might come back after we meet, and if I have any additional thoughts after we've discussed it, because I do think that book's going to have some really good discussions. And then buddy reads, I think I have touched on most of these, but I did A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness with Katie Sykes, who's a commenter. I did, Katherine of Aragon, the True Queen. I just finished this yesterday with Abby, who's another commenter. Circe, I did with Erin at Erin Go Live. And Giants in the Earth, I did both with Christina, who's a commenter, and with Hannah at Savage Reads. So those were my buddy reads for the month. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty business. A goal that I've had for the last couple of years, and I have never met. In fact, not only have I never met it, I have horribly failed at it, which is to finish the year with at least one less book on my owned TBR. So those are books that I own and haven't read than I started the year with. I've never met this goal. Never. But let's see how I did so far. So my sort of really kind of like vague reading goal for the year is 175 books. That's just how much I think I'm average going to read. I'm not really sweating it. But I am currently at 87 books, so I'm 15 ahead of schedule according to Goodreads. Now, my own TBR count is, brace yourselves, 884 books. That is the same as last month. I did not go up. I am, however, still up 21 for the year. So I need to either get reading or get unhauling, because now I have 7 months to get that down. And now we're going to break it out. 329 of those books are in print. And that's really what I'm concerned about, because print books take up room. That's up 4 from last month, and it's up 24 for the year. So I need to work on that. In ebook, I have 490 ebooks that I have not read. Thank you, ebook sales. I'm blaming you. That's down 3 from last month and down 2 for the year. And then if I break it out more, I have 125 Kindle books that I haven't read. That's down 2 from last month, down 3 for the year. And 365 Kobo books, which is down 1 from last month, up 1 for the year. That's right. And then audiobooks, which I'm keeping track of this year, although audiobooks, I'm not as concerned about audiobooks. I have 63 audiobooks that I have not read or listened to. That's down 1 from last month, and it's down 3 for the year. On Audible, I have 14, which is the same as last month. I don't think I did any Audible books. Did I? Wasn't Circe an Audible book? I don't know. I'll have to look that up. Oh, Circe was, Circe's not included in that because in my spreadsheet, I had the print there. So I did listen to an Audible book, but it wasn't counted because I was counting the print book. But 14. And that's the same as last month, down 1 for the year. And then for Libro, I have 49. That's down 1 from last month and down 2 for the year. I have not been using my Libro credits, especially. I've been hoarding them for BookTube prize books. So yeah, I don't know. I probably should. Audible is, I'm not going to get any more Audible books credits. I have the one where you get like 12 a year. I'm not renewing that. Libro, it would hurt me to give it up, but that's more of like a security blanket thing because I can get most of those through the library. So I don't know. I probably should get rid of the Libro one, but oh well. I still have credits, so I'm not going anywhere while I still have credits. But yeah, that is my May. I am really looking forward to reading in June because it is big book summer, of course, and read historical fiction 2025. So there will be a lot of historical fiction next month, starting today. Not that there wasn't a lot of historical fiction here, but yeah. So I have done TBR videos on that, and I will read more than what's on that TBR. So yeah, I'd love to know how your May went. If you're participating in Read Historical Fiction or Big Book Summer, let me know, or you just say hi. Or if you don't want to say anything but want to let me know you were here, you can leave a flower because that's kind of May-ish. Flowers, I like flowers. As a comment, that's fine. You'll get a little heart from me. And there you go. So like, subscribe, join my Discord, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.